stopped buying my stepdaughter Christmas gifts, and my husband called me a liar. But that is the least of my problems, because I just discovered he secretly transferred the deed to my house to his ex-wife. I am sitting in my car, shaking uncontrollably, realizing that for 3 years, I have not been a wife. I have been an unpaid bank account funding a life I am not allowed to live. While I work 80-hour weeks to pay his mother's medical bills and the mortgage on this sprawling Connecticut estate, he has been funneling my savings to his former spouse and poisoning his 12-year-old daughter against me. He called me selfish for not buying a $2,000 iPad, yet he drained our emergency fund to buy his ex-wife a car behind my back. How do you evict a husband who stole your home from under your feet before you even knew it was gone? Is it financial abuse if he claims he did it for his daughter? Or is that just the ultimate manipulation? I feel like I am drowning in a sea of gaslighting and betrayal. Please, I need to know. Am I the villain for cutting them off? Or was I the fool for letting them bleed me dry? What would you do? My name is Alexandra Sterling, though most people just call me Lexi. I am 33 years old, a creative director for a top-tier advertising agency in Midtown Manhattan, and I live in what looks like a postcard of the American dream. We reside in Greenwich, Connecticut, in a sprawling 4-bedroom colonial house sat on 2 acres of manicured land, nestled behind a row of privacy hedges that cost more than my first car. To the outside world, I have it all: a handsome husband, a charming stepdaughter, and a career that puts me in the top 1% of earners for my age bracket. But as I steered my Audi Q5 through the blinding white sheets of a December nor'easter, gripping the leather steering wheel until my knuckles turned ivory, I did not feel like a woman who had it all. I felt like a pack mule wrapped in cashmere. The digital clock on the dashboard read 8:45 in the evening. I had left the house at 6 in the morning to catch the express train into the city, managed a crisis with a client who hated the color blue, skipped lunch to rewrite a pitch deck, and was now crawling home at 10 miles per hour because the plows had not reached our cul-de-sac yet. I pulled into the driveway, the tires crunching heavily over 6 inches of fresh powder. My headlights swept across the front of the house. It was dark, not the cozy, ambient darkness of a home waiting for its owner, but the neglectful darkness of occupants who could not be bothered to flip a switch. The only illumination came from the flickering blue light of a television screen dancing against the living room bay window. Focus, Lexi, I told myself, exhaling a cloud of condensation against the cold glass. Just get inside, put on the smile, be the glue. That was my role, the provider, the fixer, the glue. I grabbed my laptop bag and 2 bags of groceries from the passenger seat. I slipped twice on the walkway, the ice coating the slate stones beneath the snow. Nobody had salted the path. Of course, nobody had salted the path. I keyed into the front door and pushed it open with my shoulder. The heat of the house hit me, carrying the stale scent of pepperoni and heated electronics. I am home, I called out, my voice sounding thinner than I intended. Silence. I kicked off my snow-crusted boots and walked into the living room. Ryan was exactly where I had imagined him, indented into the corner of the gray sectional sofa like a permanent fixture. He was 35, with the kind of boyish good looks that had charmed me 3 years ago. Messy blonde hair and a jawline that suggested strength. Right now, that jaw was slack as he stared intently at the 70-inch screen, his thumbs hammering away at a PlayStation controller. A headset covered his ears. "Ryan?" I said, louder this time. He slid one ear cup off, not looking away from the game. Hey, babe, you are late. Dinner is cold. I looked at the coffee table. An open pizza box sat there, grease staining the cardboard. A half-empty bottle of beer rested on a coaster I had bought in Italy, dangerously close to tipping over. There was a storm. Ryan, I said, fighting the urge to drop the grocery bags right there on the floor. The roads are a nightmare. Did you see the snow? Yeah, looks brutal, he muttered, eyes glued to the screen as he reloaded a virtual weapon. Did you bring milk? Chloe was complaining about having dry cereal tomorrow. I felt a sharp pinch behind my eyes. Not are you okay? Not let me help you with those bags. Just a query about the milk inventory. Yes, I brought milk, I said, walking past him into the kitchen. The kitchen, my pride and joy with its marble countertops and Viking range, was a disaster zone. Dirty plates from breakfast were still stacked in the sink, submerged in gray, soapy water that had gone cold hours ago. A sticky residue coated the island where someone had spilled juice and just left it to dry. I set the groceries down and leaned against the counter, closing my eyes for a second. Inner monologue, you knew this. Lexi, you knew he was not domestic. He is an artist, a free spirit. That is what you told your mother when she asked why he had not held a steady job since 2019. He is freelancing. He is finding himself. Apparently, he is finding himself at the bottom of a pepperoni pizza box. Heavy footsteps thudded down the stairs. Chloe, my 12-year-old stepdaughter, shuffled into the kitchen. She was wearing oversized pajamas and holding her phone like a holy relic. She did not look at me. She went straight for the grocery bags, digging through them until she found a box of organic fruit snacks. Hi, Chloe, I said, trying to infuse warmth into my voice. How was school? Fine, she said, popping a gummy into her mouth. She looked me up and down, her eyes landing on my designer bag. Dad said you guys get your Christmas bonuses this week. Did you get it? The directness of the question took the air out of my lungs. Hello to you too, Chloe. Yes, I think payroll processed it today. Why? Just wondering. She shrugged, turning back toward the stairs. Mom said she needs the child support check early this month because she wants to book a ski trip. So, make sure Dad sends it. She did not wait for an answer. She just walked away, leaving me alone in the messy kitchen. I walked back into the living room. Ryan had finally paused the game. He was stretching, his shirt riding up to reveal a stomach that was losing its battle with gravity. Babe, Ryan said, reaching for a piece of paper on the coffee table and holding it out to me without getting up. This came in the mail today. The Homeowners Association is being a pain in the ass again. I took the envelope. It was a citation from the Homeowners Association. Failure to clear sidewalk of snow and ice within 6 hours of snowfall cessation. Second notice. Fine. $250. I stared at the paper. Ryan, this is the second notice. When did the first one come? I do not know. A couple of weeks ago? I forgot to tell you. He shrugged, picking up his beer. Just write them a check. Okay? They are such Nazis about the sidewalks. It is ridiculous. My hand trembled slightly holding the paper. Ryan, you were home all day. It stopped snowing the first time at noon. You could have shoveled, or at least salted. He let out a dramatic sigh, the kind you use when a toddler asks too many questions. Lexi, come on. I am working on my graphic design portfolio. I cannot just break my flow to go shovel snow like a manual laborer. My back has been acting up anyway. You know that, so you want me to pay $250 because you did not want to go outside? I asked, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. It is just money. Lexi, he said, putting the headset back on. You make plenty of it. Do not be so stingy. It is unappealing. He turned back to the game. Oh, by the way, Mom called. She wants to know if we are hosting Christmas Eve dinner this year. I told her yes. You should probably order the prime rib soon. Places sell out. I stood there, still in my coat, clutching the fine notice. The heat in the house was stifling, but I felt cold down to my marrow. I looked at the back of his head, at the expensive gaming headset I had bought him for his birthday, and for the first time in 3 years, the word partner felt like a lie. I was not his partner. I was his sponsor. Right, I whispered to the empty air, because he was already shouting commands at his teammates online. I will handle it, like always. But as I walked back to the kitchen to clean up their mess, I did not feel like handling it. I felt something else entirely. A tiny hairline fracture in the foundation of my life. Quiet, but audible, threatening to bring the whole house down. The next morning, the winter sun glared off the snowdrifts outside, casting a harsh, exposing light into my home office. I sat at my mahogany desk, the one piece of furniture I had insisted on buying for myself, staring at the banking portal on my laptop screen. The coffee in my mug had gone cold, but the chill spreading through my chest had nothing to do with the temperature of the room. I hit refresh again. The numbers did not change. The savings account labeled Emergency House Repairs, a fund I had been painstakingly building for 6 months to fix the slate roof that leaked every spring, was nearly empty. $7,000 had been withdrawn via a cashier's check 2 days ago. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. Fraud. It had to be fraud. My mind raced through the protocols. Call the bank, freeze the cards, file a police report. I pushed my chair back, the wheels scraping loudly against the hardwood floor, and marched down the hallway. I found Ryan in the kitchen. He was leaning against the counter, scrolling through his phone while waiting for the Keurig machine to hiss out his morning brew. He looked rested, his hair tousled in that artful way that used to make my knees weak. Now, it just looked messy. Ryan, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. Did you move money out of the repair fund? There is a withdrawal for $7,000. I think we have been hacked. Ryan did not look up immediately. He took a slow sip of his coffee, wincing at the heat, before turning his gaze to me. There was no panic in his eyes. There was only a calm, maddening indifference. Oh, that, he said casually. No, we were not hacked. I moved it. I blinked, trying to process the words. You moved it? Where? Ryan, that money is for the roof. The contractor is coming in January for the estimate. I bought a car, he stated simply. The air left the room. You bought a car? You have a car. I pay the lease on it every month. Not for me. Lexi, he said, setting the mug down with a sharp clink. For Sarah. My mouth fell open. Sarah was his ex-wife, the woman who had made my life a living hell during their divorce proceedings. The woman who called me the corporate robot to anyone who would listen. You bought your ex-wife a car with our roof money? I whispered, the absurdity of the sentence tasting like ash on my tongue. Ryan rolled his eyes, a gesture so dismissive it felt like a physical slap. Do not make this about you. Lexi, it is not for Sarah. It is for Chloe. Sarah's transmission blew on that junk heap she drives. How is she supposed to get Chloe to school? How is she supposed to get Chloe to dance practice? Do you want our daughter riding the bus like some latchkey kid? Inner monologue. Our daughter. He always uses that phrase when he wants money. Suddenly, the biological boundaries dissolve when my wallet is required. But when I want to discipline her for skipping homework, then I am just the stepmom. Ryan, I said, fighting to keep my voice level. Sarah receives $2,000 a month in child support. That is her responsibility. You cannot just raid our savings without asking me. That is theft. He laughed, a short, dry bark of a laugh. Theft? We are married. Lexi, it is community property. And frankly, I am appalled that you are putting a roof over mere shingles ahead of the safety of a 12-year-old girl. You are so obsessed with money. It is ugly. He had done it again. He had twisted the narrative so quickly that I felt dizzy. Suddenly, my concern for financial security was framed as greed, and his unauthorized spending was an act of noble fatherhood. I stared at him, really stared at him. I saw the way his lip curled in subtle disgust, as if my questions were beneath him. I am not the one who is obsessed with money. Ryan, I said, my voice hardening. I am the one who earns it. He stiffened. The mask of the laid-back artist slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing a flash of pure malice. Do not throw that in my face, he warned, his voice low. Just because you sold your soul to corporate America does not make you better than me. He reached into the back pocket of his jeans and pulled out a folded piece of paper, slapping it onto the granite island between us. Since you are in such a mood about finances, here, he said, this is the list for Christmas. I looked down at the paper. It was written in his handwriting, distinct and demanding. Chloe, Apple iPad Pro, 12.9 inch, 2 terabytes, designer handbag, Gucci or similar, concert tickets for Taylor Swift, floor seats, mom, gold locket, vintage style, preferably with a diamond inlay. I looked up from the list, my vision blurring slightly. This is thousands of dollars. Ryan, the iPad alone is nearly $2,000. So, he challenged, she is 12. It is a crucial age. She needs to feel special, and mom has had a hard year with her arthritis. She deserves a pick-me-up. He leaned in closer, invading my personal space. And do not get cheap on the wrapping this year. Lexi, make it look nice. You have until the 24th. He picked up his coffee and brushed past me, his shoulder checking mine hard enough to make me stumble. I stood alone in the kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. I looked at the list, then I looked at the spot where he had stood. Inner monologue. He does not see me. He sees a walking ATM. He sees a servant who pays for the privilege of serving him. He took the roof from over my head to buy a car for the woman he used to love. And now he demands I buy diamonds for the woman who hates me. I picked up the piece of paper. The paper felt heavy, burdened with an expectation that I would simply obey. As I always had, I smoothed out the crease where he had folded it, but something had shifted. It was a physical sensation, like a bone snapping deep inside my chest. It was the sound of the first crack appearing in the dam I had built to hold back 3 years of resentment. I am not buying these, I said to the empty room. I folded the paper and put it in my pocket. I did not throw it away. I kept it, not as a shopping list, but as evidence. 2 days before Christmas, The silence in my house was heavy enough to suffocate a person. Ryan had taken Chloe out for what he called a father and daughter bonding day, which I knew meant he was taking her to the mall to scout for more things she wanted, likely promising her that I would buy them all. I was alone. I stood in the hallway holding a stack of tax documents that had arrived in the mail. My accountant had been pestering me for Ryan's freelance income statements for weeks. Every time I asked Ryan for them, he deflected, claiming he had it under control or that his system was too complex for me to understand. Today, I did not have the patience for deflection. The deadline was approaching, and if we filed late, the penalties would come out of my salary, not his non-existent one. I walked toward the door of his home office. He called it his studio. It was the only room in the house I rarely entered, mostly because he claimed my energy disrupted his creative flow. I pushed the door open. The air inside was stale, smelling faintly of vape smoke and old coffee. The room was a monument to expensive hobbies. A $3,000 iMac sat on the desk, surrounded by drawing tablets, high-end cameras, and lenses that were gathering dust. I had paid for all of it, believing I was investing in his dreams. I walked over to the desk, intending only to look for a file folder or a receipt box. The surface was a chaos of papers, energy drink cans, and tangled wires. I shifted a stack of gaming magazines, looking for anything that resembled a tax document as I moved the mouse to wake the computer screen, intending to search his digital files for an invoice. The monitor flared to life. He had not logged out. My heart gave a strange, syncopated thump. I knew I should not look. I knew that invading his privacy would make me the villain in his narrative if he ever found out. But the email client was open, and the subject line in the center of the screen froze my blood. The subject line read, "Tuition strategy for Chloe." It was an email thread between Ryan and his mother, Margaret. My hand hovered over the mouse. My breath caught in my throat. I clicked on the thread. I read the most recent message from Margaret, sent just that morning. "Don't worry about the tuition fees for the private academy. Ryan, just tell Lexi it is an investment in Chloe's future. You know how she is. She is so pathetic about wanting to be a real mother that she will pay anything to feel valid. Just play the guilt card. Tell her the public school is failing, Chloe. She is a cash cow. So, milk her while you can before she wakes up." I felt a physical blow to my stomach, as if someone had swung a sledgehammer into my ribs. I had to grab the edge of the desk to keep from falling. Pathetic, cash cow, milk hair. These were the words used by the woman I had driven to doctor appointments. The woman whose mortgage I had helped pay off 2 years ago when she claimed she was drowning in debt. And my husband, the man who had vowed to love and cherish me, had replied to her. His response was short. "I know, Mom. I am working on it. I just have to wait until after the Christmas bonus clears. She is getting suspicious about the car, so I have to play nice for a few weeks." I stared at the screen until the white background burned into my retinas. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and stinging, but they did not fall. The shock was too profound for tears. It was a cold, anesthetizing shock. I was not a wife to them. I was not a daughter-in-law. I was a resource. I was livestock. My eyes drifted away from the screen, unable to process any more of their venom. I looked down at the mess on the desk. Underneath a half-eaten bag of pretzels, I saw the corner of a credit card statement. It was for a Chase Sapphire Reserve card. I frowned. We did not have a Chase Sapphire Reserve card. Our joint account was with American Express. I pulled the statement out. It was addressed to Ryan Sterling. I scanned the summary box. The balance due was $14,000. My hands shook as I opened the statement to look at the transaction history. I needed to understand. November 12th, Le Bernardin, $450. November 14th, Saks Fifth Avenue, $800. November 20th, the Ritz-Carlton Spa, $600. I looked at the dates. November 12th was a Tuesday. I remembered that Tuesday vividly. Ryan had told me he was going to a networking event for graphic designers in the city. He had come home late, smelling of wine, and told me the event was a bore, but the connections were promising. He had not been networking. He had been dining at one of the most expensive restaurants in New York. And the spa? On November 20th. That was the day after my birthday. For my birthday, Ryan had given me a card. Just a card. He said money was tight. The very next day, he spent $600 at a spa. But who was he with? I flipped to the next page of the statement. There was a charge for a flower delivery service. $150. The recipient address was listed next to the charge. It was Sarah's address. His ex-wife? The puzzle pieces slammed together with the force of a car crash. The car he bought her, the dinners, the spa treatments, the flowers. He was not just supporting his daughter. He was courting his ex-wife. He was using my salary, my hard work, and my credit rating to wine and dine the woman who had divorced him for being broke. Now that he had access to my money, he was the perfect husband. Just not to me. I realized then that the secondary card on my credit line, the one I had authorized for him to use for household emergencies and groceries, must have been used to pay off the minimum balance on this secret card to keep it afloat. He was laundering my money to fund a fantasy life with another woman. A sound from the driveway outside snapped me back to reality. The rumble of the garage door opening. They were home. Panic flared for a second. If he found me here, he would spin it. He would gaslight me. He would say I was crazy, that I was invading his privacy, that the emails were jokes I did not understand. I took a deep breath. No, I would not give him the satisfaction of a confrontation. Not yet. A confrontation now would just be noise. It would be emotional. He would see me cry, and he would use my tears against me. I quickly took a photo of the email screen with my phone. Then I took photos of every page of the credit card statement. My hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped. A strange, icy calm had settled over me. It was the calm of a soldier who realizes they are behind enemy lines and the only way out is through. I placed the statement back exactly where I found it, under the pretzel bag. I moved the mouse to put the computer back to sleep. I backed out of the room and closed the door, leaving it exactly as slightly ajar as it had been. I walked into the kitchen just as the door from the garage opened. Chloe burst in, carrying 3 large shopping bags from Sephora and Lululemon. Ryan followed, looking like the doting father of the year. "Look what Daddy got me," Chloe squealed, holding up a pair of leggings that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Ryan smiled at me, a tight, plastic smile that did not reach his eyes. "Hey babe, we decided to do a little early Christmas shopping. Just a few small things." I looked at the bags. I looked at his smile. I thought about the email. Cash cow. Milk her. I smiled back. It was the hardest thing I had ever done in my life. "That is nice, Chloe," I said. My voice sounded distant to my own ears, like it was coming from underwater. Ryan walked over to the fridge and grabbed a beer. "So, did you get the wrapping paper for the big gifts? The iPad and Mom's necklace? We need to get those wrapped tonight so they look good under the tree." He was so confident, so arrogant in his security. He thought I was stupid. He thought I was desperate. He thought I was a dog that would keep coming back no matter how many times he kicked me, just for a scrap of affection. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw a stranger. No, worse than a stranger. I saw a parasite. I forgot to tell you. Ryan, I said, leaning against the counter, crossing my arms to hide the fact that my fists were clenched so tight my fingernails were digging into my palms. I have been looking at the accounts. We are a little tighter than I thought this month. His face darkened instantly. What do you mean? You got your bonus. I did. I said, but the market is volatile. I was thinking maybe we scale back a bit. Ryan slammed the refrigerator door. Lexi, do not start this. Do not ruin Christmas. I already told Chloe she is getting the iPad. I already told Mom about the necklace. You are not going to embarrass me. There it was. The entitlement. The threat. I am not trying to embarrass you. I said softly. Inner monologue. I am not going to embarrass you. Ryan, I am going to destroy you, but you will not see it coming until the ground is already gone from beneath your feet. Fine, Ryan snapped. Just get it done. I do not want to hear about money again. It is Christmas. Stop being such a miser. He walked out of the room, Chloe following him, chattering about her new clothes. Neither of them asked how my day was. Neither of them cared. I stood alone in the kitchen. The sun had set, and the room was filled with shadows. I reached into my pocket and touched my phone, feeling the cold glass of the screen. Inside that device was the truth. I walked over to the calendar hanging on the wall. December 23rd. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve. The deadline he had given me. I picked up a red marker. I drew a circle around the date. You want a memorable Christmas. Ryan, I whispered to the empty house. I will give you a Christmas you will never forget. I turned off the lights and walked upstairs. I did not go to our bedroom. I went to the guest room. I locked the door, and for the first time in my marriage, I slept with my wallet under my pillow. Christmas Eve arrived, wrapped in a veneer of aggressive festivity. The house smelled of roasting prime rib and fresh pine, a scent I had carefully curated to mask the rotting stench of my marriage. I had spent 6 hours in the kitchen, timing the sides, glazing the carrots, and ensuring the table setting was worthy of a magazine spread. Ryan, naturally, had spent the day supervising. This mostly involved him sitting at the kitchen island with a glass of scotch, critiquing my chopping technique and reminding me that his mother preferred her meat well done, which was a culinary crime for prime rib. But I nodded and smiled. I was doing a lot of smiling today. It was the sharp, brittle smile of a predator waiting for the trap to snap shut. Margaret arrived at 6 o'clock sharp. She swept in, wearing a fur coat that she had definitely purchased with the money I lent her for her hip surgery last year. She kissed Ryan on both cheeks, hugged Chloe tightly, and then offered me a limp hand, as if I were a distant acquaintance she had met at a funeral. Alexandra, Margaret said, looking around the living room. The tree looks a bit smaller than last year. Budget cuts? I took her coat. It is actually a foot taller. Margaret, perhaps it is just the perspective. We sat down for dinner. The conversation was a minefield. Ryan told stories about his freelance projects, exaggerating his role until he sounded like the chief executive officer of a design firm. Chloe texted under the table. Margaret complained about the draft, the neighbors, and the wine, which was a $50 bottle of Cabernet. So, Alexandra, Margaret said, slicing into her beef with aggressive force. I hope you have been treating my son well. He works so hard. It is important that a wife supports her husband's ambitions, not just his bank account. I took a sip of water to wash down the bile rising in my throat. Inner monologue. Supports his ambitions? You mean funding his affair with his ex-wife? You mean paying for your retirement while you sneer at me? Enjoy the meal. Margaret, it is the last one you will ever eat on my dime. I agree completely. Margaret, I said smoothly, support is everything in a marriage. Dinner ended, and we moved to the living room for the main event. This was the Sterling family tradition. We opened the big gifts on Christmas Eve. The fire was crackling, the lights on the tree were twinkling, and the pile of gifts was substantial. Ryan stood by the fireplace, rubbing his hands together. He looked smug. He was confident that I had caved. He was sure that the fear of his disapproval had sent me running to the Apple store and the jeweler. He had seen the wrapped boxes under the tree, and he assumed they contained his demands. All right, ladies, Ryan announced, let us see what Santa brought. Chloe, you go first. Chloe scrambled off the sofa, her eyes wide with greed. She went straight for the largest box, wrapped in silver paper with a gold bow. It was the exact size of an iPad Pro box. She tore into the paper, ripping it to shreds. Ryan watched her, a proud smile plastered on his face, waiting for the squeal of delight that would validate him as the provider he pretended to be. Chloe lifted the lid. Her smile faltered, then it vanished. She reached into the box and pulled out a spiral-bound planner and a set of high-quality graphite pencils. What is this? She asked, her voice trembling with confusion. Ryan frowned. He looked at me, his eyes narrowing. Lexi? What is that? I took a calm sip of my wine. It is a planner. Chloe, and art supplies. You said you wanted to get organized for school next semester. Chloe threw the planner onto the floor. I wanted the iPad. You promised. Dad said you got the iPad. Ryan stepped forward, his face flushing red. Lexi, is this a joke? Where is the real gift? Check the other box, I suggested, pointing to a velvet-wrapped package for Margaret. Margaret eagerly snatched it up. Oh, finally, she opened the box. Inside was not a diamond locket. It was a framed photograph of Ryan, Chloe, and me from last Christmas. A nice frame, certainly, but definitely not gold. Margaret stared at it in horror. A picture? I asked for the locket, the vintage one from the catalog. The room went silent. The air crackled with tension. Ryan turned to me, and the mask was gone. His eyes were black holes of rage. What are you doing? He hissed. You had the list. I gave you the list weeks ago. I set my wine glass down on the coaster. I looked him dead in the eye. I know you did, Ryan, but as we discussed, money is tight. Money is tight? He shouted, making Chloe jump. You got a bonus. You make 6 figures. Stop lying. You are just being a selfish bitch because you are jealous of Sarah. There it was. He said it in front of everyone. I stood up. I did not raise my voice. I spoke with the terrifying clarity of someone who has nothing left to lose. I am not lying. Ryan, the bonus money is gone. You spent it. I did not. He screamed. Yes, you did. I said, you took $7,000 from the roof repair fund to buy a car for Sarah. You told me it was for Chloe. So, I figured since you already spent $7,000 on a gift for Chloe's transportation, our budget for Christmas was exhausted. I turned to Chloe, who was crying on the rug. Your father bought your mother a car. Chloe, that is your Christmas gift. It is a very generous one. I hope you enjoy the rides to school. Ryan looked like he had been slapped. He stammered, looking from his mother to his daughter. That is different. That was a necessity. Oh, Margaret chimed in, her voice shrill. So you are punishing a child because my son helps his family. You are a monster. Alexandra, a cold-hearted monster. Chloe looked up at me, her face twisted in hate. I hate you. You are the worst stepmom ever. I wish Dad never married you. She kicked the box of pencils across the room and ran up the stairs, slamming her door so hard the windows rattled. Ryan advanced on me, pointing a finger in my face. You did this on purpose. You humiliated me. You humiliated my mother. You humiliated yourself. Ryan, I said, standing my ground. I am just balancing the books. He grabbed my arm. His grip was painful. Fix this. Lexi, you go out tomorrow morning and you buy those gifts. I do not care if you have to maximize every credit card you own. You fix this, or you are going to regret it. I looked down at his hand on my arm. Then I looked up at his face. Let go of me. Ryan, he shoved me away. Disgust radiating from him. You are pathetic. Sleeping on the couch is too good for you. He turned to his mother, who was clutching her chest theatrically. Come on. Mom, let me get you a drink. Lexi is leaving. I am? I asked. Yes. He spat. Get out of my sight. Go to a hotel. Do not come back until you have the gifts. I looked at the beautiful tree, the roaring fire, and the two people who were supposed to be my family. They looked at me with pure, unadulterated loathing. I walked to the hallway and put on my coat. I grabbed my purse. Merry Christmas. Ryan, I said. I walked out into the cold, snowy night. I did not go to a hotel to buy gifts. I went to the 24-hour office of the forensic accountant my lawyer had recommended. The spiral had begun, but they were the ones going down. I was just letting go of the rope. I returned to the house at 7 in the morning on Christmas Day. The sky was a bruised purple, heavy with the threat of more snow. I had spent the night in a sterile room at the Marriott, staring at the ceiling, my conversation with the forensic accountant playing on a loop in my mind. He had found irregularities in the digital scans I sent him, but he needed the originals. He needed the wet ink signatures to prove intent. I parked my car down the street to avoid waking them. The house was dark and silent. The aggressive holiday cheer of the previous night had dissolved into a hungover stillness. I let myself in through the garage, keying the code with trembling fingers. Inside, the house smelled of stale wine and dead fire. I crept past the living room. Chloe's rejected art supplies were still scattered across the floor, a testament to her spoiled rage. I did not stop to clean them up. I was not the maid anymore. I went straight to the master bedroom. Ryan was sprawled across the bed, snoring with his mouth open. Wrapped in the duvet I had imported from Egypt, he looked peaceful, innocent even. It made my skin crawl. I moved to the walk-in closet where we kept the fireproof safe. I knew the combination. It was his birthday, followed by Sarah's birthday. I had never questioned why he chose those numbers before. Now, the realization was just another paper cut on a body covered in wounds. I spun the dial, right to 19, left to 14. The lock clicked. I opened the heavy metal door. I bypassed the passports and the birth certificates. I reached for the thick manila envelope labeled House Deed and Mortgage. I needed to confirm that my name was on the title. The accountant had seen a transfer in the public records that did not make sense. A transfer that happened 3 days after we closed on the house 5 years ago. I pulled the documents out and sat on the floor of the closet, the cold wood pressing against my legs. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. I flipped past the mortgage agreement, which clearly listed Alexandra Sterling as the primary borrower. Of course, I was the one with the credit score. I was the one with the debt. Then I found the deed of trust. I read the first line, then I read it again. Grantor, Brian Sterling, acting as power of attorney for Alexandra Sterling. Grantee, the Chloe Sterling Irrevocable Trust. Trustees, Ryan Sterling and Sarah Sterling. The room spun. I had to put a hand on the floor to steady myself. My name was not on the deed. I remembered the closing day 5 years ago. I had been swamped at work, managing a crisis for a pharmaceutical client. Ryan had offered to handle the closing. He brought a notary to my office during my lunch break. He had placed a stack of papers in front of me, just standard stuff. "Babe," he had said, "sign here so I can sign for you at the title company. It saves you the trip." I had signed a limited power of attorney. I thought it was just for that day. I thought it was to help me. He had used that signature to transfer the ownership of the house immediately into a trust. A trust for his daughter. A trust controlled by him and his ex-wife. Inner monologue. I do not own this house. I have been paying the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, and the repairs for 5 years. I have poured nearly $500,000 into this property, and I am a tenant. No, I am worse than a tenant. A tenant has rights. I am a squatter who pays for the landlord's lifestyle. I flipped to the next page. There were the signatures, Ryan's sprawling autograph, and next to it, Sarah's neat, bubbly cursive as the co-trustee. They had planned this. Before we were even married, they had planned this. Sarah knew. Ryan knew. His mother likely knew. I was the mark in a long con. The marriage was not a union. It was a financial acquisition strategy. A sound came from the bedroom. The rustle of sheets, Ryan grunting in his sleep. I looked up at the door. For a moment, a wave of nausea hit me so hard, I thought I would vomit on the designer shoes lined up on the shelves. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run into the bedroom and shake him until his teeth rattled. I wanted to ask him how he could sleep at night, how he could look at me every day and say I love you while he was systematically erasing my future. But then, the nausea passed, and in its place came something cold and heavy. Like a stone settling in the bottom of a well. The tears stopped. The shaking stopped. I looked at the document one last time. This was not a mistake. This was war. If I confronted him now, he would destroy the papers. He would lie. He would manipulate Chloe to cry to the police. He would claim I was hysterical. No, I needed to be smarter. I needed to be exactly what they accused me of being. Cold, calculated, and corporate. I took the deed. I took the mortgage papers. I took the original power of attorney document. I folded them and slid them into the inside pocket of my coat. I stood up and closed the safe. I spun the dial back to 0. I walked out of the closet and stood by the bed. Looking down at my husband, he shifted, mumbling something in his dream. Inner monologue. Sleep well. Ryan, dream of your free house and your new car. Dream of the legacy you think you have secured for your daughter. Because when you wake up, the nightmare begins. You weaponized my incompetence. You relied on my blindness. Well, my eyes are open now, and I am going to burn your world down. Brick by stolen brick. I turned and walked out of the bedroom. I descended the stairs, my boots making no sound on the carpet. I walked out into the gray, freezing Christmas morning. I did not feel the cold. I was burning up from the inside out. The victim was dead. She died in that closet. I got into my car and locked the doors. I pulled my phone out and dialed my lawyer's personal cell phone number. It was Christmas morning, and I knew his rate would be triple. I did not care. "Merry Christmas, Arthur," I said when he answered, his voice groggy. "I am going to need you to file for an emergency freezing of assets, and I need you to find a prosecutor who specializes in real estate fraud. I have the smoking gun." I put the car in drive. I did not look back at the house. It was not my house anymore. It was a crime scene. The lobby of the Marriott Hotel was a cavern of polished marble and muted conversations. A 20-foot Christmas tree stood in the center, adorned with gold ribbons and glass ornaments that probably cost more than my first apartment. I sat in a high-backed velvet armchair in the corner, my laptop open on the small round table in front of me. To the passing guests, I looked like a dedicated executive catching up on work during the holidays. In reality, I was an executioner. Arthur, my lawyer, had been clear during our phone call. "Secure your liquid assets, Alexandra. If the house is in a trust, we have a long battle ahead to prove fraud. But cash is king. If your name is on the bank accounts as a joint owner, you have every right to move those funds. It is not theft. It is marital dispute, but you need to move fast." I logged into the online portal for our primary joint checking account. This was the reservoir into which my salary flowed every 2 weeks. It was the vein that kept the Sterling family alive. Balance, $12,450. Ryan had not drained it yet, likely because he was waiting for the automatic payments for the utilities and the country club membership to clear on the first of the month. He was complacent. He believed the system would run on autopilot forever. I clicked transfer. I moved $12,000 into a new, private account I had opened 10 minutes ago, an account at a completely different bank where Ryan Sterling did not exist. I left $450, just enough to avoid an overdraft fee, but not enough to live on. Next, I went to the credit card tab. My finger hovered over the trackpad. This was the nuclear option. Ryan carried an American Express Platinum card that was linked to my credit profile. It was his badge of honor. He used it to buy drinks for his friends, to pay for his photography gear, and, as I now knew, to finance his life with his ex-wife. I selected the card. I clicked Report Lost or Stolen. A pop-up window appeared asking if I wanted to freeze the account immediately. I clicked yes. I sat back, exhaling a breath I did not realize I had been holding. In the digital world, the guillotine falls silently. There is no sound of a blade dropping, just a pixelated confirmation screen. Your request has been processed. Inner monologue. It is done. The intravenous drip is removed. Now, we watch the patient go into withdrawal. You wanted to be the head of the household. Ryan, you wanted to make the decisions about where the money goes? Well, now you can decide how to pay for dinner with $0 But I was not finished. The rage inside me was a cold, methodical engine, and it demanded more fuel. I pulled up the contact list on my phone. I scrolled down to Sunset Hills Assisted Living. This was the hardest part. My father-in-law, George, was a kind man. He had dementia, a cruel disease that had stripped him of his memories but left his gentle nature intact. He was the only Sterling who had ever treated me with genuine kindness. But George was Margaret's husband, and Margaret had called me a cash cow. Margaret had no income. Ryan had no income. I paid $6,000 a month for George's care. It was the leverage that kept Margaret comfortable in her condo. Knowing her husband was safe, I dialed the number. It rang 3 times before the holiday receptionist answered. Sunset Hills. Merry Christmas. Hello, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. This is Alexandra Sterling. I am the guarantor for resident George Sterling. Room 304. Oh, hello, Mrs. Sterling. How can we help you today? I am calling to update the billing information effective immediately. I said, I am removing myself as the financial guarantor for George Sterling. Any future invoices need to be sent directly to his wife, Margaret Sterling, or his son, Ryan Sterling. There was a pause on the line, a heavy, confused silence. Ma'am? The receptionist asked, her voice dropping an octave. We have a credit card on file for the autopay. Are you saying we should stop the charge for January? Yes, I said. Stop the charge. Cancel the authorization. I am no longer responsible for this account, Mrs. Sterling. The woman sounded frantic now. If we cannot secure payment by the 1st, per policy, we have to initiate transfer protocols. We would have to move George to a state-funded facility if the family cannot pay. You know how disruptive that is for dementia patients. I closed my eyes. I saw George's confused smile. I felt a stab of guilt, so sharp it nearly made me hang up. Inner monologue. This is war. Lexi, there are no clean wars. If you pay for George, you are freeing up Margaret's money to fight you in court. You are financing your own destruction. Margaret did not care about your future when she plotted to steal your house. She does not get to keep her comfort while stealing yours. I understand the policy, I said, my voice turning to steel. Please contact Margaret Sterling for payment. Have a nice day. I ended the call. My hand was shaking. I placed the phone face down on the table. That was the tragedy of it. The innocent would suffer because the guilty were too greedy to stop. 5 miles away, at the upscale Whole Foods in downtown Greenwich, the tragedy was taking a different form. I could picture it perfectly because I knew Ryan's routine. It was 11 o'clock. He would be buying the ingredients for the Christmas redemption dinner he had undoubtedly promised his mother and daughter. He would be buying dry-aged steaks, truffle butter, expensive bottles of wine, and an apology cake from the bakery. He would be piling the cart high, performing the role of the provider, desperate to smooth over the humiliation of the previous night. My phone buzzed on the table. A text message from American Express. Transaction declined. Whole Foods Market. Amount $458.12. Card ending in 4005. I stared at the screen. 2 minutes later, another buzz. Transaction declined. Whole Foods Market. Amount $458.12. Card ending in 4005. He was trying again. He was standing at the checkout, likely with a line of impatient shoppers behind him. He was probably laughing it off, telling the cashier, "Oh, the chip is finicky. Let me swipe it." My phone began to ring. The caller identification flashed Ryan, hubby. I let it ring. It rang again immediately. I picked up the phone but did not speak. I just listened. Lexi. Ryan's voice was high-pitched, laced with panic and fury. Pick up the phone. I am at the store. The card is not working. The American Express is declining. I know, I said calmly. What do you mean? You know? He shouted. I could hear the background noise of the supermarket, the beep of scanners, the murmur of people. Did you forget to pay the bill? Fix it. Call them right now. I have 3 bags of groceries, and people are staring at me. I did not forget to pay the bill. Ryan, I said. I reported the card stolen. Silence. Absolute. Stunned silence. You what? He whispered. I reported it stolen. I repeated, because I realized it was being used by a thief, someone who steals from roof repair funds, someone who steals house deeds. Lexi. His voice dropped to a dangerous growl. Unlock the card. Right now. Do not do this here. I cannot unlock it. Ryan, it is canceled. And I moved the money from the checking account. All of it. You bitch. He has said. You left me with nothing? I am standing here with nothing. You have your portfolio, I said, my voice dripping with the sarcasm he had used on me for years. You have your freelance career. Surely a graphic designer of your caliber can afford a few steaks. Lexi, stop this, he shouted, losing control. Mom is at home waiting for dinner. Chloe is hungry. You are embarrassing me. No, Ryan, I said, I am liberating you. You wanted to be the man of the house? You wanted the house so badly you stole it from me. Well, congratulations. You are the man. Now, be a man and pay for your own dinner. I am going to call the police. He screamed. You stole my money. It is community property. Remember? I threw his own words back at him. And actually, since I earned it, and you committed fraud to secure the house, I think the police will find our financial situation very interesting. Go ahead. Call them. Ask them to come to Whole Foods. I will send my lawyer to meet you there. He did not speak. I heard his heavy breathing. I heard the cashier ask, Sir, do you have another form of payment? There is a line. I have to go. Ryan stammered to the cashier, his voice breaking. Goodbye, Ryan, I said. I hung up. I sat alone in the hotel lobby. The Christmas music was playing Joy to the World. I pictured him walking out of that store, leaving the cart full of food behind. I pictured the walk of shame to the car that I paid for. It was a tragedy. It was a tragedy that a man with so much potential had decided to be a parasite. It was a tragedy that a marriage built on hope had ended in a grocery store checkout line. But as I looked at the snow falling outside the hotel window, I did not feel sad. I felt a strange, hollow lightness. The umbilical cord was cut. The baby was going to have to breathe on its own, or suffocate. The day after Christmas was always the busiest day of the year at the agency. We called it the hangover cure. Clients who had panicked over holiday sales numbers were calling in frantic droves, demanding pivots on campaigns that had been approved months ago. It was chaos, but it was organized chaos. It was a chaos I understood, controlled, and excelled in. I sat in the glass-walled conference room on the 25th floor of our building on Madison Avenue. Below me, New York City was a grid of gray, slush, and yellow taxis. Inside, the air was climate-controlled and smelled faintly of expensive espresso and dry erase markers. I was in the middle of a pitch meeting for a luxury watch brand. For the first time in 48 hours, I felt safe. I felt like Alexandra Sterling, the creative director, not Lexi, the duped wife. My assistant, Jessica, opened the glass door. She did not knock. Jessica always knocked. I stopped mid-sentence. I looked at her. Her face was pale. her eyes wide and darting nervously toward the elevator banks down the hall. "I am so sorry to interrupt, Lexi," Jessica said, her voice trembling, "but there are people here to see you." Security tried to stop them at the lobby, but they claimed it was a family emergency involving a child. "They are coming up." My stomach dropped through the floor. A family emergency involving a child. They had used Chloe. They had weaponized the safety of a 12-year-old girl to bypass corporate security. "Who is it, Jessica?" I asked, though I already knew. Before she could answer, the double doors of the elevator lobby burst open. The sound of Margaret's voice carried down the sleek, minimalist corridor like a siren. "Where is she? Do not tell me she is in a meeting." "My husband is being thrown out on the street." I stood up slowly. My team of 6 junior creatives and 2 account managers stared at the door, then at me. The room fell into a silence so profound I could hear the hum of the hard drive in the projector. Ryan and Margaret rounded the corner. They looked like a caricature of a family unraveling. Ryan was wearing the same jeans he had worn yesterday, his hair unwashed, his face covered in a patchy stubble that spoke of a sleepless night. Margaret was trailing behind him, clutching her purse with a white-knuckled grip, her face flushed a blotchy, angry red. They saw me through the glass wall. Ryan did not hesitate. He lunged for the door, shoving Jessica aside with his shoulder. "Lexi," he shouted. I turned to my team. "Everyone out. Now." They did not need to be told twice. They grabbed their laptops and scrambled out the side door. Casting terrified glances at the intruders, I was left alone in the fishbowl. Ryan slammed his hands onto the mahogany conference table. The impact made the water pitcher rattle, unlock the cards. "Lexi." Right now, I stood at the head of the table. I clasped my hands behind my back to hide the fact that they were shaking. Not from fear, from adrenaline. I was a wire pulled tight, humming with potential energy. I looked at the camera in the corner of the ceiling. The little red light was blinking. We recorded all pitch meetings for quality assurance. They did not know that. "Hello?" "Ryan." "Hello, Margaret," I said, my voice eerily calm. "You are trespassing." "Trespassing?" Margaret shrieked. She stepped up beside her son. She looked deranged. "We are your family. How dare you speak to us like criminals?" I just got off the phone with the nursing home. They said you canceled the payment. They are threatening to move George to a state facility. "A state facility?" Alexandra, with poor people, inner monologue. With poor people, that is her greatest fear. Not that George will be cold or hungry, but that he will be near the people she despises. The irony is, without me, she is one of them. I did not cancel the payment. "Margaret," I said, "I simply removed myself as the payer. George is your husband. Ryan is his son. It is time for his family to care for him. You know we cannot afford that." Margaret screamed, spit flying from her mouth. "Ryan is an artist. His money is tied up in investments, and I am on a fixed income. You have the salary. You have the obligation. When you married my son, you took on his burdens. That is what a wife does." I looked at Ryan. He was breathing heavily, his eyes darting around the room as if looking for a weapon. "Investments?" I asked quietly. "Is that what we are calling the money laundering operation you are running with Sarah?" Ryan froze. The color drained from his face, leaving him a sickly gray. Margaret stopped screaming. She looked at her son, then back at me. "What are you talking about?" I walked over to my laptop. I did not open it. I just touched the lid. "I know about the credit card. Ryan, the Chase Sapphire Reserve. I have the statements, the dinners at Le Bernardine, the spa days, the flowers for Sarah. I turned my gaze to Margaret. And I know about the house. I know about the trust. I know that I have been paying the mortgage on a property that Ryan transferred to Chloe and Sarah 5 years ago. The silence that followed was heavy, thick, and suffocating. Margaret's mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. She knew. Her reaction confirmed it instantly. She did not look surprised. She looked caught. Ryan straightened up. The panic in his eyes shifted into something darker, something mean. He realized the nice guy act was over. He realized I was not confused or hurt. I was informed. "You snooped," he said, his voice dropping to a low sneer. "You violated my privacy. You broke into my safe. I found documents in my own home. Ryan, documents that pertain to my financial slavery." "Slavery?" Ryan laughed. A harsh, barking sound. "You lived like a queen. You have a big house. You have a family. We gave you a purpose. You were a lonely, workaholic spinster before I found you. I gave you a life. You gave me a bill." I corrected him. He walked around the table, closing the distance between us. He stopped inches from my face. I could smell the stale alcohol on his breath. "Listen to me, Lexi. You are going to fix this. You are going to call the bank and tell them it was a mistake. You are going to reinstate the nursing home payments. And you are going to sign a check for $50,000 to cover our pain and suffering for this stunt you pulled." "Or what?" I asked. "Or I will destroy you," he whispered. He leaned in closer, his eyes manic. "I will go to the police. I will tell them you have been abusing Chloe." My breath hitched. It was the one threat I had not prepared for. The sheer evil of it. "I will tell them you hit her," Ryan continued. Seeing my reaction, "I will tell them you lock her in her room. I will tell them you starve her. Chloe will back me up. She hates you right now. She will say whatever I tell her to say. I will call Child Protective Services. I will have you arrested for child abuse." Imagine what that will do to your career. Imagine the headlines. "Top creative director arrested for beating stepdaughter." I stared at him. I looked into the eyes of the man I had slept next to for 3 years. I saw no love. I saw no humanity. I saw only a desperate, cornered rat willing to bite anything to survive. Margaret chimed in, her confidence returning now that her son had played his ace. "Yes, we will ruin you. The court of public opinion does not care about your receipts, Alexandra. They care about crying little girls. We will paint you as the evil stepmother from hell. You will lose your job. You will lose your reputation. You will have nothing." Inner monologue. They are right about one thing. An accusation alone could end me. In my industry, image is everything. Even if I am proven innocent later, the stain remains. They are weaponizing the system designed to protect children against the woman who has been feeding that child. I felt a cold sweat break out on my back. My heart was hammering so hard I thought they could hear it. But I forced my face to remain a mask of stone. I remembered the red light blinking in the corner. "Is that your plan, Ryan?" I asked clearly, pitching my voice so the microphone would catch every syllable. "You are going to coerce your 12-year-old daughter into filing a false police report and committing perjury to blackmail me into giving you money?" Ryan smirked. "It is not blackmail, Lexi. It is a negotiation. And yes, I will do whatever it takes to protect my assets. Chloe understands that sometimes we have to lie to survive against monsters like you." He had said it. He had admitted it. "And you, Margaret?" I asked. You condone this? You want your granddaughter to lie to the police? Margaret sniffed, adjusting her fur coat. I support my son, and I support my granddaughter getting what she is owed. If you force our hand, you deserve what happens. I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. Ryan exhaled, his shoulders relaxing. He thought he had won. Good. I knew you were smart. Now, get your phone. Make the transfer. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out my phone. I did not open the banking app. I opened the security app for the building. I pressed the panic button. What are you doing? Ryan asked, frowning. I am not making a transfer. Ryan, I said, I just alerted building security. They are on their way up with the New York Police Department liaison who works in the lobby. Ryan lunged for me. He grabbed my wrist, his fingers digging into my skin. Give me the phone. I did not pull away. I let him grab me. I needed the bruise. I needed the physical evidence to match the digital one. Let go of me. Ryan, I shouted, loud enough for the people in the hallway to hear. You bitch, he screamed, shaking me. The glass door shattered inward, not literally, but it flew open with enough force to bounce off the stopper. 3 uniformed security guards and 2 police officers stormed in. Step away from her, one of the officers shouted, his hand on his holster. Ryan let go of me instantly, throwing his hands up. Officer, thank God. This woman is crazy. She is stealing my money. She is having a breakdown. I stood rubbing my wrist, where red marks were already forming. I looked at the officer. I was calm. I was professional. I was the creative director in her office. Officer, I said, my voice steady. This is my estranged husband and his mother. They bypassed security. He just assaulted me, and he is attempting to blackmail me. I have the entire conversation recorded on the room's audio-visual system. Ryan's eyes widened. He looked up at the camera. He saw the red light. No, he whispered. No, that is illegal. You cannot record me without my consent. Actually, I said, allowing myself a small, cold smile. This is a place of business. There is a sign in the lobby stating that all premises are under video surveillance. You walked right past it. Margaret let out a wail, clutching the edge of the table. I am an old woman. I am fainting. I need a chair. Get them out of here. I said to the guards, and I want to file a restraining order immediately. The police officer moved toward Ryan. Sir, turn around and place your hands behind your back. Ryan looked at me. The hatred in his eyes was gone, replaced by pure terror. Lexi, please, do not do this. Think about Chloe. I am thinking about Chloe. I said, I am thinking that the best thing for her is to be as far away from you as possible. They handcuffed him. They marched him out of the glass room, past my staring employees who had gathered in the hall. Margaret followed, sobbing loudly about her blood pressure and the injustice of it all. I stood alone in the conference room. My wrist throbbed. My heart raced. I walked over to the audio-visual control panel on the wall. I stopped the recording. I exported the file to my personal cloud drive. I looked out the window at the gray city. Inner monologue. You threatened to burn me. Ryan, you threatened to use the darkest lie imaginable to destroy my life. You wanted a war? You just authorized a nuclear strike. You have no idea what I am capable of when I stop caring. I picked up my phone. I had one more call to make. Not to the bank, not to the nursing home. I dialed the number for the best defamation lawyer in New York. The court of public opinion does not require evidence. It requires a villain. And for 48 hours, that villain was me. I sat in the corner of a dimly lit coffee shop 3 towns over from Greenwich, wearing dark sunglasses and a scarf wrapped high around my neck. My phone lay on the table like a live grenade. I did not want to touch it, but I could not look away. Ryan had been released on bail. The restraining order was in place, meaning he could not come within 500 feet of me. But digital bullets have an infinite range. He had gone to the one place where he could control the narrative without interruption. The Greenwich Community Facebook board. I watched the post count tick upward. 500 likes, 200 shares, 300 comments. Ryan had written a masterpiece of fiction. The post was titled, "The Grinch Wears Prada: How My Corporate Wife Abandoned My Dying Father on Christmas." In his version of the story, I was a heartless executive who had seduced him with promises of stability, only to pull the rug out when his father got sick. He claimed I had drained our joint accounts to fund a lavish solo vacation. I was currently staying at a Courtyard Marriott, and that I had left his 12-year-old daughter without Christmas gifts to teach her a lesson about poverty. He conveniently omitted the part about the house deed, the secret credit card, and the blackmail. He had even set up a GoFundMe page, "Help Save George Sterling from Eviction." It had already raised $5,000 from sympathetic neighbors who had never spoken a word to me in 3 years. I scrolled through the comments. Susan M. wrote, "I always knew she was cold. She never waves when she drives that Audi." Mom of 3 wrote, "Disgusting. How can someone treat a child like that? Someone should call her employer." Patriot 1980 wrote, "Typical corporate elite. Stepping on the little guy. We got your back." Ryan. I felt a physical wave of nausea. These were people I bought Girl Scout cookies from. These were people I saw at the dry cleaners. They were dissecting my character based on the lies of a man who had stolen my future. Inner monologue. This is how it happens. You spend a lifetime building a reputation, and it takes one man with a smartphone and a victim complex to burn it to the ground. They hate me because I am successful. They love him because he is the underdog. He played the perfect card. My phone buzzed. It was a text from the human resources director at my agency. "Lexi, we are getting emails. We need to talk." That was the breaking point. He was not just hurting my feelings. He was coming for my livelihood. He was coming for the one thing that was truly mine. I closed the browser. I picked up my coffee, which tasted like mud. "I am done playing defense," I whispered. 2 hours later, I walked into the office of Evelyn Vance. She was known in legal circles as the Barracuda. Her office was in a glass tower in Stamford, overlooking the Sound. It smelled of leather and intimidation. Evelyn was 60 years old, wearing a suit that cost more than Ryan's car. She did not offer me tea. She simply extended a hand and pointed to the chair. "I have seen the post, Mrs. Sterling," Evelyn said, her voice like gravel wrapped in silk. "It is a compelling piece of creative writing." I placed a flash drive on her desk. "This is the nonfiction version," I said. Evelyn plugged the drive into her computer. She watched the video from the conference room. The video where Ryan admitted to the fraud. The video where he threatened to force Chloe to commit perjury. The video where he called me a cash cow. She watched it twice. Then she opened the folder containing the photos of the trust deed and the credit card statements showing the jewelry purchases for his ex-wife. Evelyn leaned back in her chair. A slow, terrifying smile spread across her face. "Oh," she said softly, "we are going to have fun." "What is the strategy?" I asked. "Do we sue for libel?" "Libel takes years," Evelyn said, ejecting the drive. "And by the time you win, the damage is done." "No," We do not sue him yet. We destroy his credibility. He took this to the public square. Alexandra, so we will answer him in the public square. But we will not use emotional rants. We will use data. That evening, the counter-offensive began. We did not post on the community board. That was beneath us. Evelyn released a formal press statement to the local news outlets that had picked up Ryan's sob story. The headline was simple: Statement from Counsel regarding the false allegations against Alexandra Sterling. But we did not just send text. We attached the exhibits. Exhibit A, the redacted video clip from the conference room, specifically the 30 seconds where Ryan said, "It is not blackmail, Lexi. It is a negotiation. Chloe will say whatever I tell her to say." Exhibit B, the email thread between Ryan and Margaret discussing me as a cash cow to be milked. Exhibit C, the bank statement showing the $7,000 withdrawal for Sarah's car, juxtaposed with the invoice for George's unpaid nursing home bill. The caption was brutal in its brevity. Mr. Sterling claims poverty while funding luxury vehicles for his former spouse, using funds stolen from his wife. Mrs. Sterling has supported the family for 3 years. The nursing home payments were ceased only after Mr. Sterling attempted to extort additional funds. I sat in my hotel room and watched the internet burn. It happened fast. The internet sloths, the ones who had been calling for my head in the morning, paused. They watched the video. They saw the arrogance on Ryan's face. They heard the cruelty in his voice regarding his own daughter. The tide turned with the violence of a tsunami. Susan M. commented, "Oh my God, did he really say he would make his daughter lie to the police?" Mom of 3 wrote, "I take it back. This guy is a psycho. He is using that poor girl as a pawn." Patriot 1980 deleted his comment. Then the focus shifted to the GoFundMe. People started reporting it as fraud. Commente, "I donated $50. I want it back. He is not broke. He bought his ex-wife a car." My phone started buzzing again, but this time, it was not hate mail. It was apologies. It was people distancing themselves from Ryan. Then, a call came through. It was Ryan. I stared at the screen. I knew I should not answer. Evelyn had told me not to answer, but I needed to hear it. I needed to hear the sound of his world collapsing. I picked up, "Lexi." His voice was a ragged whisper. "Take it down, please." I walked to the window. The snow was falling again, covering the dirty city in a blanket of white. "I cannot take it down, Ryan," I said calmly. "I did not post it. The news outlets did. It is news now. They are destroying me." He sobbed. He was actually crying. "Someone threw a brick through Sarah's car window. My mother is having a panic attack. The neighbors are standing on the lawn. You wanted the public's attention, Ryan," I said. "You wanted them to know the truth about our marriage. Now they know, Lexi. Please. I am sorry. I will sign whatever you want. Just make it stop." Inner monologue. He is sorry, not because he hurt me, not because he stole from me. He is sorry because the mask slipped. He is sorry because the world finally sees the parasite beneath the skin. It is too late for apologies. "Ryan," I said, "the hearing is on Monday. Bring your lawyer and tell your mother to return the fur coat. She is going to need the cash for bail." I hung up. I blocked his number. I sat down on the edge of the bed. I should have felt triumphant. I had won the battle of public opinion. I had cleared my name. My job was safe. But as I sat there, in the silence of the hotel room, I did not feel like a winner. I felt hollow. I looked at the comments on the screen. Strangers cheering for me now, calling me a boss lady and a queen. They did not know. They did not know that every victory felt like losing a limb. They did not know that the man being destroyed was the man I had once vowed to spend my life with. The public fallout was over. The dust was settling, and all that was left in the crater was me. The mediation room in the Stamford family court building smelled of floor wax and stale anxiety. It was a windowless box designed to suck the emotion out of the end of a marriage, leaving only the dry husk of asset division. I sat on one side of the long, pale wood table. Evelyn sat next to me, her posture perfect, her face a mask of bored professionalism. Opposite us sat Ryan. He looked smaller than I remembered. The swagger was gone. His expensive leather jacket, the one I had bought him for our first anniversary, hung loosely on his frame. He had not shaved in days. Next to him was a court-appointed lawyer who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. And then there was Chloe. They had brought her. Ryan had insisted on it. He claimed she was a material witness to my emotional cruelty. She sat at the far end of the table, slumped in a plastic chair, wearing a hoodie pulled up over her head. She looked tiny. She looked 12 years old going on 80. Ryan cleared his throat. His voice was raspy. "We are willing to settle," he said, avoiding my eyes. "We want the house. It is already in the trust, so that is non-negotiable. And since Lexi acted as a mother figure for 3 years, we are requesting spousal support and child support, $2,000 a month. It is only fair." She abandoned us. Evelyn did not even look up from her legal pad. "Mr. Sterling," Evelyn said, her voice dry, "you seem to be under the impression that this is a negotiation. It is not. We are here to offer you a choice. You can sign the divorce papers granting Alexandra a full refund of her initial down payment and equity, or we can proceed to a criminal trial for fraud, embezzlement, and extortion." Ryan slammed his hand on the table. It was a weak, hollow sound. "You cannot prove fraud," he shouted, "and you cannot walk away from Chloe. Look at her. She is traumatized. She cries every night because she misses her stepmom." He reached out and grabbed Chloe by the shoulder. He gave her a rough shake, jostling her. "Tell her, Chloe," Ryan commanded. "Tell her how much you miss her. Tell her how mean she was to leave us without Christmas gifts." Chloe flinched under his hand. She did not look up. She stared at the grain of the wood table, picking at a hangnail until it bled. I felt a phantom pain in my chest. Not for Ryan, for the girl. Inner monologue. He is doing it right in front of us. He is squeezing the tears out of her like juice from a lemon. He does not care that she is bleeding. He only cares that the juice is sweet enough to sell. Evelyn Seahill. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a printout of a text message thread. "We obtained these through the discovery process from your phone provider, Ryan," Evelyn said. "This is a conversation between you and your ex-wife, Sarah, dated 3 months ago." Ryan went pale. "I do not know what you are talking about." Evelyn slid the paper across the table. It stopped right in front of Chloe. "Read the highlighted section." "Chloe," Evelyn said softly. "No." Ryan lunged for the paper. "Do not read that." His lawyer held him back. "Sit down." "Ryan, let her read it." Chloe looked at the paper. Her eyes moved slowly across the text. The room was so quiet I could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. I watched her face. I watched the moment her childhood ended. Her lip trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. But these were not the crocodile tears Ryan had coached her to cry. These were real. She looked up at her father. Her voice was a broken whisper. You called me a liability, Ryan stammered. Chloe, baby, no, that is out of context. Chloe looked back at the paper. She read it aloud, her voice shaking. Text from Ryan. I know Chloe is a pain in the ass. She is a whiny, expensive little liability. But we have to keep her happy, so Lexi keeps playing house. The kid is the anchor. As long as Lexi feels guilty about the kid, the money keeps flowing. Once we get the house paid off, we can send Chloe to boarding school or back to you full time. I cannot wait to be done with her drama. Chloe dropped the paper. She looked at me. Then she looked at her father. You said I was the anchor, she whispered. You said you wanted to be done with me. Chloe, listen to me. Ryan began, reaching for her again. Do not touch me, Chloe screamed. The sound tore through the small room. She scrambled backward, her chair tipping over with a loud clatter. She backed into the corner of the room, sliding down the wall, pulling her knees to her chest. She buried her face in her arms and began to sob. It was a guttural, ugly sound, the sound of a heart breaking into pieces that could never be glued back together. Ryan sat frozen. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. Lexi, to help her. You are good with her. Calm her down. I stood up. I looked at the man who had destroyed 2 lives for the sake of a free ride. I am not her mother. Ryan, I said coldly, you made sure to remind me of that every day. You are her father. Go comfort the daughter you called a liability. I turned to Evelyn. I want the house sold. I said, I want my equity back, and I want him to pay every cent of my legal fees. If he refuses, we release the text messages to the press. I looked at Chloe one last time. She was shaking in the corner, a pile of misery. I wanted to go to her. I wanted to hold her and tell her that she was worthy of love, that she was not just a pawn in a financial game, but I knew I could not. If I stepped in now, the cycle would restart. She had to see him for who he was. She had to feel the burn of the fire to know not to walk into it again. I walked out of the room, inner monologue. I won. I got the money. I got the justice. But as I walked down the hallway, listening to the wails of a 12-year-old girl fading behind me, it did not feel like a victory. It felt like walking away from a car crash where you are the only survivor. I saved myself, but I left part of my soul in that room. 6 months later, the ink on the final settlement papers had dried, leaving a permanent stain on the history of the Sterling family. I stood on the balcony of my new apartment in Tribeca, looking out at the jagged skyline of Manhattan. The air was crisp, smelling of rain and exhaust. A stark difference from the pine-scented lies of Greenwich. The house was gone. I had sold it to a nice young couple from Boston for $2,400,000. After paying off the mortgage and the legal fees, I walked away with my original down payment and a modest return on my investment. Ryan walked away with nothing but a pile of debt and a bruised ego that would never heal. I heard through the grapevine, which in Connecticut is just a polite term for the vicious gossip circuit, that Ryan had moved back in with Margaret. They were living in her 2-bedroom condo in New Haven. It was a poetic sort of justice. The 2 people who had conspired to live off my labor were now forced to cannibalize each other in a cramped space, fighting over the thermostat and the grocery bill. I imagined the arguments. I imagined the resentment festering like black mold on the walls. But there was no joy in that image, only a dull, aching pity. My phone sat on the glass railing of the balcony. It was silent. No demands for money. No guilt-tripping texts about school plays or doctor appointments. The silence was expensive. It had cost me a marriage and 3 years of my life. But it was mine. I took a sip of Pinot Noir. It was a vintage bottle, one I had bought to celebrate my promotion. I was drinking it alone. This was the part of the story they do not tell you in the movies. The part where the hero wins the war, but still wakes up with nightmares about the battlefield. I thought about Chloe. That was the wound that refused to close. After the mediation, after the revelation that her father saw her as a liability, Chloe had shut down. She stopped speaking. She stopped fighting. The court granted custody to her biological mother, Sarah, the same Sarah who had used her child support payments to buy designer handbags, the same Sarah who had conspired with Ryan to steal my house. I had tried to intervene. I had asked Evelyn if I could petition for visitation, or perhaps set up an educational trust that Ryan could not touch. Evelyn had looked at me with sad, tired eyes and said, "Alexandra, you have no biological tie. You have no legal standing. To the law, you are a stranger. If you try to give her money now, Sarah will just take it. You have to let go." So I did. I let go of the girl I had taught to bake cookies. I let go of the girl whose hair I had braided before her first dance recital. I sent her back into the wolves' den because the law said she belonged to the wolves. Last week, I saw a photo of her on social media. She was wearing heavy makeup, looking far older than 12, posing with a new designer purse that looked suspiciously fake. She looked like a miniature version of Sarah. The cycle was repeating. She was learning that love was transactional, that value was measured in logos, and that manipulation was a survival skill. I took another sip of wine, feeling the burn in my throat. Inner monologue. I could not save her. That is my sin. I was so busy saving myself from drowning that I let her sink. But what else could I have done? If I had stayed, they would have bled me dry until there was nothing left of me to give. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep others warm. Lexi, even if the person shivering is a child. I turned my back on the city view and walked into my living room. It was minimalist, clean, and empty. There were no muddy boots by the door. There were no video games blaring from the television. There was just peace. It was a lonely peace, but it was safe. I realized then that I had spent my entire life trying to buy affection. I thought if I was the perfect provider, the perfect stepmother, the perfect wife, I would be worthy of love. Ryan saw that hunger in me and he fed on it. He did not steal from me because he was strong. He stole from me because I was willing to give pieces of myself away in exchange for the illusion of family. I put the wine glass down on the marble counter. I was done buying gifts. I was done buying love. The next time a man told me he needed me, I would check the price tag first. I picked up the remote and turned off the lights, plunging the apartment into darkness. The only light came from the city outside. Millions of little sparks in the night. I was just one of them, burning alone, but burning bright. I was scarred. I was cynical. I was solitary, but I was free. This story is not just about a bad marriage or a greedy husband. It is a cautionary tale about the dangerous intersection of love and finance, and the specific vulnerability of high-achieving women who feel the need to overcompensate in their personal lives. Lexi represents many of us who believe that our value lies in what we can provide, rather than who we are. The tragedy of this story is not that Lexi lost money. She can make more money. The tragedy is that a child like Chloe was collateral damage in a war between narcissistic adults. It reminds us that step-parent is often a thankless role where you carry the burden of a parent with none of the rights. We often talk about financial abuse, but we rarely see it disguised as family tradition or fatherly duty. Ryan weaponized his incompetence, and his daughter to strip Lexi of her autonomy. Lexi's victory was not in destroying Ryan. It was in reclaiming her own reality. So, I leave you with this question to ponder tonight. If love requires you to bankrupt your self-respect, are you in a relationship, or are you in a hostage situation? Thank you for listening.